Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Hopelessly Casual. I got it right this time. I'm your host Christian, I got that right too, and I'm here as always with Freya. Freya, say hi.
Hello, I'm amazed. You made it.
I did it.
I'm kind of sad.
Yeah, we should kind of end it here now, you know.
Yeah,
so
I think,
thanks
so much for listening, you guys. That was the episode.
Short and sweet. Right, so today we're talking about collections and collecting things.
Yes.
When it comes to, like things, let's say, what would you call it, pertaining to nerd culture, it's easy to get collectibles.
Yeah.
It's easy to get collecting because, like there's so many things. If you think about franchises like Star Wars, Marvel, we're talking books, films, comic books, whatever.
Because we're all little magpie people, and the industry exploits that because we see something we like and we want it.
Exactly. I think it's the impulse of, taking something of that and putting it somewhere where it's accessible to you, because I don't know, you don't always have time to watch a 2-hour, 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
When you feel like, I'd like a bit of Star Wars in my life, or I'd like a bit of Star Trek in my life. You can't just, necessarily always watch an episode of The Next Generation.
I'm wearing a Hobbit ring as we speak, so yeah.
Based on the horrible movie trilogy. Okay,
Indeed.
Beautiful. Well, we'll seriously end it now then. Okay, let's not talk about The Hobbit, or else I'll go into a fit.
Oh yeah, I know.
Right, so of course, like collecting doesn't only pertain to nerd stuff. Of course, there's many things that you can collect. I don't know, from stamps.
I was literally about to say, if you say stamps, I will walk out of here.
Yeah,
but,
I never got the appeal. I'm sure the moment you're into something, you get the appeal. You know what I mean. There's people who collect model airplanes. My uncle, for example, collected model cars, which can, really appreciate and value over time. Mm-hmm. But the thing is also that brings us to, something like along the lines, why do we collect? Yeah. There's some people, who collect, everything has to stay in the box, mint condition if possible, because, it's a bit of an asset, like something that might appreciate and value over time. But, when I think about, I don't really know if I ever consciously collected anything. It was just like my first obsession really was Star Wars when I was little, because it was one of the few things I was allowed to watch when I was small, apart from old James Bond movies, because my mum loved Sean Connery. And so I loved everything Star Wars, so I collected whatever I could: video games, the books, the Star Wars fact file, all 121 issues, including the binders.
Damn.
And it became a bit of an obsession, because then it didn't really matter what it was, you wanted it.
Yeah.
I remember before Star Wars Episode 3 came out in cinemas in 2005, there was toilet paper with Star Wars motifs on it, and I'm happy to say I was conscious enough to say, what, I don't really need that.
Commendable. Impressive. Yeah, I'm kind of with you in terms of, I don't think I ever collected, like not for the sake of collecting something. I'm very much a Fandom merchandise type person.
Absolutely.
Like I have a whole bunch of different jewelry from like my different fandoms that I was and am part of, like some Harry Potter stuff, some Lord of the Rings stuff, some Supernatural stuff.
And let's just say, if I just may, some of it, or the way fandom is recognised, or you could even call it exploited, because you still are going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Some of the things you can get in merch is incredible. If you look at the Noble collection in terms of Harry Potter items, Supernatural items, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, nice replicas. You pay a lot of money for those.
You do.
Sometimes, surprisingly, not so much money, but it feels like you have an authentic thing from that particular universe.
Exactly, and it kind of, I guess it serves as sort of like a bridge, doesn't it, between like the fictional world that is so appealing to you and the real world. It's kind of like taking a little slice of life from the thing that you probably on some level would like to actually exist, and to sort of feel more connected to it.
Agreed. For me, I can safely say, because when I was really into Star Wars, for example, I have to use it as an example, because for me it's the most
prominent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was a bit of a social outcast, you know, like, and when your situation in life isn't all that great, you know, like you can always, I don't know, or sometimes you turn to escapism.
Absolutely.
And for me, every bit of Star Wars that I collected brought me a bit closer to that universe, which can be fun, but if you overdo it, it's not healthy. And, you know, like I enjoyed learning about that universe because, you know, like it made my fantasies more elaborate, exactly. And then a thing like the Star Wars Fact Fire came along. It was like came out every week. You had like the topics like historical events, characters, droids, technology, ships, and I was just eating that up, and it was incredible. Then you've got the video games that let you interact with, you know, like the universe itself, and all that. And I remember it really, really didn't matter. As long as I could get it, I would consume it. But and I remember I did one weird thing. I remember the very first thing Star Wars I got when I was little, because at that point you could only get the movies on VHS and we didn't have those. So when Star Wars came on at that point, just a trilogy, came on television once a year, that was a highlight. But the first thing in terms of merch I ever got was Luke Skywalker as an action figure. You know, like with his blue lightsaber, farm boy Luke Skywalker. And then my grandfather bought me Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight from Return of the Jedi.
Right.
And you know, what do you do as a child? You do the normal thing. You take them out of the box and you play with them.
Of course.
Because it's so much fucking fun.
And it's a toy. Like, for all intents and purposes, it's a toy.
Exactly. And years later, I must have been around, I don't know, 14, and I went to a flea market. And I found an action figure of Mace Windu. And I bought it. And it was still in the box. And I never took it out of there for some reason, because, you know, like I was influenced by, you know, like collecting culture in a way where it's like everybody makes fun of that. You know, The Simpsons made fun of it with Comic Book Guy.
Yeah.
You don't take it out of the box. And I never played with it. You know, I was 14. Action figures were sort of no longer the big thing for me. But, you know, like still, I could have placed Mace Windu somewhere nice in a cool pose, and no, he remained in his box. And this is, I don't know, I don't fully grasp that.
I don't either. I mean, I don't really relate to collecting culture, period, anyway, because I did collect things. Well, now I think about it, I think the most prominent example for me would be One Piece. Which I started watching super young. I think I must have been like 5 or 6 when I started watching the anime, which was on German television in the afternoons, like after school things back in the day. And then when I was about 7, I found the first manga.
Oh, wow.
Because I wasn't aware of mangas up to that point. It was actually not me, it was my grandma who found it randomly in a bookstore here in Hamburg, in Altona, actually, in the train station. And she was like, "Isn't this the pirate show you always watch?" And that was just a random volume. I think it was volume 14. And that started me collecting every single manga volume of One Piece.
You
to
do
this
have them
day,
all, don't you?
That
That's
comes
incredible.
out. I think I need to get the last, like the latest 3 ones I don't have, because here in Germany there was, like, you know, in Japan they're released weekly, like chapter by chapter, and here in Germany you get every 1.5 months you get like a collected one with like 10 to 15 chapters in it. Which is also why the German version was a bit behind the original. And I started reading like the Japanese translation ages ago, and that's where I think it becomes a collection, because I don't buy them anymore to keep up, because I keep up on an online version, in a translated version with the Japanese status quo, so that I'm actually up to date and not 100 chapters behind.
But you're not reading them in Japanese, are you?
I'm not. I unfortunately don't speak Japanese. I would love to. I'm that kind of nerd, but
I actually started, among many other courses, on Duolingo.
Yeah,
it's
classic,
fascinating.
same.
It's fascinating.
I watched enough anime to be able to catch certain phrases, words and stuff, but far from speaking it. But I still buy the manga to this day. I have volume 1 to 100 and I want to say 5. standing on my desk right now.
It's a big desk.
And yeah, it is. It goes over 2 levels. It's obviously my shelf. But yeah, it turned into, because my obsession with it kind of, you know, I used to be heavily obsessed with it. As we were talking about escapism during like tough childhood years and tough teenage years, One Piece for sure was my escape. And there was times where that was sort of like my main thing that I occupied myself with, because I also was a social outcast for quite some time. But then obviously I grew older. And I mean, I think there's something to be said about the series running to this day.
Absolutely.
It's as old as I am.
Isn't it even getting a remake at this point while the original is still running?
It is.
I think that must be unprecedented.
Since the Netflix live action show went so well, and me as a diehard hardcore fan must also say I really enjoyed it. I understand the choices that have been made. I think it was very well balanced to draw in a new audience. But since that was such a success, Netflix basically bought, together with a different production company that I can't think of right now, but they basically bought the rights to the saga that they also put into live action now, and are redoing it because the anime dropped in 1999.
Wow.
It just looks so different now. Like, One Piece has the original. It's basically, people talk about it in like 3 different ways. It's like the first wave, if like the first, I don't know, 5 years or something. It's very much the classic old style that you would associate with anime rising here in the West, with like your Dragon Balls and your, you know, Detective Conan and Case Closed and all that kind of stuff, right? And One Piece is part of that. So that's very much the style that you associate with it, with like 8-year-old watching it after school type thing. And then there was a whole bunch where basically the Japanese studios were so sure, rightfully so because it's a good story, but were so sure of it running well and just getting the numbers in every week that they basically didn't put in any effort. And sometimes when you just pause on the anime in this huge chunk of time, I'm talking 10 years if not more, it looks horrible. It's like stick drawings in parts.
Okay.
It's horrible. Like, there's no attention to detail in the anime towards background or anything. Proportions get weird. People look weird. There's no emotion in the faces.
It was a bit of a cash cow.
Absolutely. And now in the last, I don't know, 5 years or something, they changed studio again. And now we kind of speak about the golden age, sort of, because now it looks beautiful. But now, obviously, the discrepancy between the beginning and now is wild. It looks like different shows. So yeah, they're doing a remake of it. I mean, One Piece is as huge as a fandom, I think, as you can get. Obviously here in the West it's not as prominent, just because manga and anime is, even though it becomes more mainstream, it's still a bit of a fringe thing, I'd say.
Yeah, but still, you know, like I like as a gauge, I like to take, you know, like at a major train station, when you go into a press shop or a bookshop, if you find manga in there, One Piece is there.
Absolutely.
Together with, for example, Dragon Ball. I think Akira Toriyama just died.
Oh, yeah.
Fairly young, I believe.
68.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
So, for example, this is something, I never got the appeal of Dragon Ball. I know a lot of my friends, nearly most everyone, doesn't matter where they're from, you know, like, they all sort of at least watch Dragon Ball, and even if they're not fans, they quite like it. And I was always like, I don't get it. The fights are drawn out. I understood later that they had to do that during Dragon Ball Z because, you know, like the show had caught up with the manga, and new episode or new books had to be produced.
Well, One Piece had the same issue now. Yeah.
Exactly, but I mean, that's the thing, you know, like with fandom in and of itself, it'll take curious forms, really, because, you know, some things are sensible that I understand, where I'm like, okay, I want to be able to reread the story or something like that. So, for example, video games these days, if I can get them digitally,
right,
I'm perfectly fine with that. But for example, records or, you know, like movies, I still like to have physically, and I like to have a collection, because with movies it's brilliant, because, you know, if you're really lucky, you get a bonus disc with a lot of extra features, you learn a lot about the movie. even if you don't have a bonus disc, normally there's like a featurette on there. You know, like with vinyl records, they just sound amazing. CDs, all of that, you know, you can get a nice, I don't know, deluxe edition if you want to. I mean, some of those go overboard. But still, with video games, not so much anymore. But for example, it's just the draw of some of these IPs, really. Like, for example, I recently finished Jedi Survivor, the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order. And for the first time, it had this new or relatively new era they've got in there, the High Republic. They've got that as part of the story. So I became interested because, you know, this was way past my time where I was still hugely invested in Star Wars. And I was like, okay, let's read a book. And that's so nice. It's so readily available. Every few years or so, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to read a Star Wars book.
Yeah.
And most of the times, I'm pleasantly surprised. The thing is, there's still sort of the spectre of my old obsession with it, but I was like, okay, if you start reading this, then you have to read that because you want to know all of it.
You're horrible with that.
I know,
Yeah.
I absolutely am, because I need to be versed in the universe so I can have a fuller experience. And you know, like this truly happened for me, because, you know, like when you read all the, you know, like in-universe background information, you watch the movie and you realize, oh, I know this is happening at some other point in the galaxy, which will shape up to this event later, which can be fun.
Oh yeah,
If
the MCU showed that. People,
exactly.
Huge payoff. Fate's great.
If you do it in a healthy way, but I'm very careful these days not to do that. So I buy myself a book and I'm like, I don't know. Luckily, the book I bought now, the Star Wars book I'm reading right now, I don't think it's particularly well written, so I'm like making my way through it.
Fair enough.
But I'm like, okay, maybe don't pay so much attention to the writing, but more what it's about and the world it's establishing. Maybe when I, you know, like should I be on a long train ride in the future, I might buy the second part. I don't know. But there was a time really where I had I bought so many Star Wars books, for example, and I was not a very invested reader at that point. I like to read, but, you know, like I had like 60 Star Wars books, of which I read maybe 20 over the course that I had it. But, you know, like you could go to a flea market and somebody would, you know, like get rid of their collection and you would buy like 14 books for like £5.
Yeah, fair.
And of course you don't say no to that. I think I might even do that today, simply because I like to have a full bookshelf, you know. Like I'm with the one behind me, I'm quite good. I read most of that.
Yeah.
I read most of that.
Decent collection there, absolutely.
Decent collection. It's not as big as some other people's, but let's be honest, you know, like I'm happy with what I got there. And, you know, I still have my Star Wars collection, which is mostly, you know, in-universe encyclopedia. Because I sometimes see something in a movie and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let me look that up. Oh, that's a cool detail.
Yeah.
All of that. But, like, some things I simply don't get. And, for example, one of the biggest things, which appears to me to be bigger than Jesus, which I never understood because I find them so ugly, Funko Pops. Fucking Funko Pops.
Yep.
Do you have a Funko Pop?
I do, but they were all gifts.
Okay.
I want to stress they were all. I have a Funko Pop of Venom. I have one of Newt Scamander. I have one of Dobby. And I think that's it. And they were all gifts from people. They
see you like a franchise. They want to give you something pertaining to that franchise.
Because they fall over.
Let me tell you. Out of the box.
Yes, they are.
If you don't like them, you could have sold them.
I could have. I have one of a Niffler still that is still originally packaged. But see, my setup in my room with my my screens and for my working PC and everything is that I'm using I have two laptops and I'm using one for gaming and for work that needs to be like more high profile, basically like a desktop. So I hook it then up to a separate USB keyboard that is a bit bigger than the laptop one, so that I can work on it
more comfortably, right?
Exactly, and a second screen as well. And the second screen I have on a little platform, just so that it's up a bit higher than the rest.
Makes sense.
And under that screen, on that little platform, I had set up said Funko Pops. And it is the most annoying thing ever, because whenever I even slightly by accident move that platform, just for pushing the bloody button on the screen to turn the screen on, one of them will fall. Because they're not balanced. Because their heads are massive.
But they're not bobbleheads, right? Their heads don't bobble.
No,
that's not what they do. They just have an oversized head.
Yeah, which still, physics will show you.
But look, I go to gaming shops and all that. When I want to get something, or I even from time to time. Well, it happens rarely, but I pre-ordered a game. I pre-ordered Jedi Survivor, for example.
I remember you told me, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and I was very excited about that, even though I was only able to play it a month later after I got it. Well done, me. But you go there and you've got rows and rows of Funko Pops, and some of them are like big Funko Pops, and then they're big Funko Pops. Special editions. There's like a grey silver Pikachu that's big, ugly as fuck, and now it's not even fully painted. It's just a grey block because it's like a silver or shiny or what. I'm not in the Pokemon
shiny
franchise.
Would be the correct term, but yeah.
Let me just get that out there because I used to play Pokemon when I was little, never the card game, just the video games, and I watched the original anime, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, those things are ugly.
Yeah.
They are fucking ugly. They have dead eyes. I believe if I had those things in my home, they would kill me at night with their dead eyes.
Thanks for that image. I'll sleep well tonight.
Serves you right for having Funko Pops.
Yeah, you know what? I sort of agree. They feel like, I want to say they're a sort of like a status symbol, but I don't even know if that's true.
I mean, it's basically I've seen. Especially people on YouTube, like sometimes people, I very much like the content they put out, but then all of a sudden they send a video message or something like that, a short video, and they sit in their like office or something, and behind them is stacks and stacks and stacks of packaged in-box Funko Pops.
It seems like, I mean, when I think about them, it seems like a standard to showcase, yes, I'm that kind of nerd, the types that we claim to be as well, but I don't know where that comes from, because I just feel like everyone abides by this rule, sort of, in quotation marks, because it's a thing, but it's never addressed or spoken about.
But that's the thing, I'm not even so sure it's... I mean, if they were out of the box, I'd sort of understand it. You can say, I just like them, but they're all in boxes, sometimes stacked in a way that you can't even see the second row or whatever.
It's true.
And the only thing I can think of, this reminds me of, is remember Beanie Babies?
Oh.
In the 90s.
Oh.
They were like, I don't know, for those people out there who don't know what a Beanie Baby is, it was like a plushy toy. There were like thousands of different types, and they were highly collectible for a while.
I don't think I ever had one.
And I think they exist to this day, but they're basically worthless. But at their height, they were like, you could get them in a Happy Meal, and some of them were rarer than others. So parents would tell their children what kind of Beanie Baby to get in their Happy Meal.
It's basically child stock market.
Yeah, basically, because like everybody was like, okay, this is worth that much, and this will appreciate and value that much. And you'd have a collection, and I think almost overnight, the thing collapsed, and now you've got landfills of Beanie Babies that nobody wants. Where you're just like, first of all, they're ugly as fuck. They've got those, for the most, some of them are cute, I guess, but for the most part, like fucking Beanie Babies. And I'm sort of reminded with Funko Pops of that, because Funko Pops are out for everything. If it is a franchise, if it is even remotely, if it's even remotely out there and people are aware of it, there is a Funko Pop of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for some, I'm like, no. I remember promotional things like, yeah, if you buy this video game today, get a free Funko Pop. Get that thing away from me.
I also don't know when they popped up, but they seem to have been there forever. Like, I mean, I feel like, you know what I think of when I think of Funko Pops is what you said, like YouTuber or streamer or someone like that, with your classic IKEA shelf behind them, with colored mood lighting, and then in the calyx, like different like square spaces that you have in them, they are stuffed with Funko Pops, maybe some plushies, books, some other merch. That's the context that I think of when I think of Funko Pops. And I feel like I don't know, the rise of YouTube and of that kind of content, I want to say maybe in like 2011, 2010, something like that, maybe a tad earlier. I think they go back that far, if not more. It may be a false memory because it's just so heavily associated with that now, but I feel like any sort of content creator that was sort of like part of that golden era YouTube time back then sort of had this kind of stuff.
And I mean...
But it was never addressed, it was just there.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to look up where, you know, like basically those things originated from, because, you know, you never stop. I mean, like, okay, the popular ones, I don't know, let's say Harry Potter or something like this, Hermione and Ron, you get those.
Probably
fine.
Voldemort,
you know, like, exactly. You know, you buy those, it's like, Voldemort, what the fucking deal is up with Voldemort as a Funko Pop? It's basically white bluish with big eyes, and then, you know, like this, no, okay.
Yeah.
My point being, when something stops being enjoyable to collect, you know what I like to do when I was what I like to do around London is I like those Star Wars in Universe encyclopedia, and I like to go into any charity shop, and you go in there because there's always a book section.
Absolutely.
And I almost exclusively collected all of those that you see down there from those, because you pay like between 5 and 10 quid, which is fine for something like that.
It's funny because I thought of the big book market that is always under Waterloo Bridge every Sunday. You know, that's also where you get those as well. Like in front of the BFI down there, it's just like rows of books.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's protected from the rain because it's under the bridge. I loved it there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you know, like, this is something that makes you genuinely happy, because you go in there and you find one of those and you're like, oh, that's great. And it's not something that's going to make you poor if you do it at a reasonable rate, you know, like, because like, it's 5 quid, yeah, fucking take that. And then, you know, on the tube ride home, you're just, you know, like browsing through, it's like, oh, that's so interesting, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then you put it in your shelf and you're a bit happy about this. But, you know, like, beware collecting fucking Funko Pops, because wherever you go, there's a new one, and they're not cheap. If you're really collecting.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it adds up.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I suppose no hobby is cheap if you're really collecting. And like, for example, I play a bit, just a bit, and I say a bit, and I'm shit at it. I play a bit of Magic the Gathering on Arena. That's the digital free-to-play version. You don't have to butter any money into it. You can still play. I play against the computer because I know any decent player out there will just annihilate me. Yeah. But, you know, like, whenever a new set comes out, you get a few free booster packs, and it's fun to open them because the artwork's nice. I'm not a good player. Sometimes it's fun to build a deck and try out, you know, strategies and see. But to be perfectly honest, I'm a simple person. I enjoy those amazing artworks they do on Magic the Gathering cards. I love them. So, beautiful. But if you do that, and I think there's so many versions out of it, and they have seasons, so you've got something new to collect every day. So it's cheaper not just to buy a booster pack, but to buy a carton of booster packs.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you've got Pokemon, the trading card game. You've got Yu-Gi-Oh! And, you know, like, I played a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the physical version when I was younger.
Yeah, same.
And, you know, like, it can become incredibly expensive, incredibly fast if you want to collect something like this. And, you know, like, I had a sensible mother who said, like, okay, we don't have much money, and I'll be damned if I allow you to spend your money on that.
Yeah.
So I bought some of those boosters in secret, and I lost interest in that rather fast, rather quickly.
Yeah, because if you don't, I guess, I mean, if you don't get the endorphin hit or dopamine hit, I guess, from it, then I mean, that's what it is. Like, to be very horribly sober about this, in the end, that's what it's about. You buy something and you get the enjoyment out of it, and especially with any sort of, to put it in sort of crass terms, gambling appeal, which is any sort of booster pack or anything.
We had this with the video games.
Exactly.
You know, some countries banned it because, you know, like, these whole microtransactions.
Yes. exactly, and you don't know what you get, and
exactly.
it's
and it's
essentially
aimed at children.
It's aimed at children. So in a there's definitely some form of gambling argument to be made there, and then the same goes for any sort of closed booster pack for like any kind of card game where you buy this and you see what you get. But it makes sense that it works.
Of course it does.
You know? But then it also in turn also makes sense that you lose interest if you don't fuel that fire. And especially, I mean, if you don't have actual friends that you actively play with and that you actively
exactly, if you're not really indulging in the hobby.
It's the thing. I had a very, very weird, I guess, collection, you could call it. I only recently remember, and this is such a German thing, I need to describe it. Basically, it was little model horses.
Really?
Called Schleich. Schleich is a very, very famous...
But you see them everywhere. If
you do.
To a shop that carries toys, they have Schleich.
Yeah, and they're fairly high quality little model things, like mainly animals, but not exclusively, but mainly...
Some of them are fairies and unicorns.
Exactly. And I had horses of all kinds and varieties there. Started collecting those actually when I was like 7 or 6, when I was away with my parents on holiday, and wherever we would go, also like, you know, Canary Islands or somewhere, at some point you'd be in some form of tourist shop and there would be some sort of model horses. And that kind of spiraled and spiraled and spiraled. I ended up having a whole suitcase full of little model horses.
And at this point, how are you supposed to enjoy them? You just have a suitcase that's closed, filled with model horses.
Yeah, I still have them, to stress, but they all had names back in the day.
Wow.
All of them, and I think it was easily 100. They all had names. I all knew their names. And me and my friend back then, when we were like 7, 8, 10, maybe tops, we would play with them. But we wouldn't actually play with them. Like the whole game was dividing them up, who gets which one this time, and setting them up in the stall.
Right, it's more like placing them.
And that was it. Never actually played with them. But they were sitting, I don't know how much money, because they cost like, I don't know, 10 quid each. They're not cheap, because they're fairly okay quality. They look horrible by now, because they're not made to be put together in a suitcase that is like,
of course.
Rather they scratch on each other, you know, like they like tear off each other's color and everything. But that was the thing where it was like, having them was the point. Sometimes looking at them was the point. But actively playing with them wasn't the point, and that's why eventually it waned.
I mean, overall, you know, like the thing you're first describing is a beautiful thing. You go somewhere with your parents, and you know, like you buy one of them horses, no matter where you go. So it's a bit of I feel, in the first instant, it's a bit of a memory of the place or the occasion or whatnot.
But it would quickly move on from that.
Exactly, it can be a nice thing. But, you know, like something that I noticed, for example, I collect retro video game consoles. And I tell you something, that is a highly competitive market.
I bet.
Because I collect them for a single reason. I play video games ever since I was a little child. You know, first at those demo stations in stores. Then my mum got us a Super Nintendo. And I have some very fond memories of playing Super Nintendo with my mum. You know, it's just like, it's not so much about the video game, but I remember playing it with my mum. That was nice. But then later, you know, like my mum being a single mother and everything and working full time and all that, you know, making sure I've got everything I need. Video games, of course, aren't a priority.
Of course not.
So, you know, like new generations of consoles come out and you see them at friends' houses, you play, but you can't really afford them.
Yeah.
So I started collecting them when I got, I don't know, it can't be more than like 8 or 9 years ago where I started. Because, you know, like most consoles, like a Sega Mega Drive, a PlayStation 3, you can get them for 50 quid at a CEX, which is nice, where I'm like, yeah, I work a good job. I can afford £50.
Yeah.
I'll take this. And unless you're getting a collector's item, most games at the CEX are quite cheap, or you go on you go online, you find them there, or rebuy or whatever. You know, like, oh, and for me it's like, I have this now, I don't have to use an emulator. I can play it on the proper thing that I know from my childhood, and I can try those games that I wanted to play when I was little, or I might have even had the chance to play them, and I get to experience them. And to be perfectly honest, I don't play them all that much. I'm happy to have them. Sometimes I pull them out, and like the most joy I get out of them if I can play with someone who's roughly around my age or who's interested, because these games lack a lot of the comfort features that we know today.
Yeah.
Because some of them are just very hard, because you just paid, I don't know, around, what was it back in the day, I don't know, around 50, 60 quid, and they have to last. And that was before the internet, so you look at the back of the box and like, oh, this looks interesting. Or if you're lucky, you had a magazine. And so I get to do that. But I got the idea from watching, the Angry Video Game Nerd, who's on YouTube, one of the earliest content, or regular content creators on there. And I'm like, yeah, like that. But of course, he's got some very obscure things like the CDI or the 3DO and you name it, something I'd never buy. First of all, because I'm not collecting for collection's sake, and I'm not interested in the library of games.
Yeah.
I have a PS2 because there's a lot of interesting games on the PS2, and I can play PS1 games on the PS2. I've got a Super Nintendo because it has incredible games. I have a Dreamcast because it's a fucking Dreamcast, And I get to play those. I have them neatly put in boxes. If I want one, I get them out. I plug them in. I have an HDMI converter, and I'm like, yeah, this is fun. And recently, I got some friends over, and we plugged in the Nintendo 64 to play GoldenEye, which is an absolute classic. And I didn't play GoldenEye as a child, so I have not really that much going on with it. But I gave the controllers to my friends, and they were so happy about this, and that was cool. You collect it. Not in a very dedicated way, but in a way that's fun, that makes you happy, where it's like, oh, I got a new game, I always wanted to play that, it's so cool, I got it for cheap, now I get to play it, yay, and I don't have to worry about filling a catalogue.
Yeah.
And this is something that really annoyed me, because when I got an NES, which is a wonderful console, interesting things, you see people post their collections, and they have 5 golden cartridges of the first Zelda game, where I'm like, I understand that you want to have the game, I'd like to, and it's not super expensive, but it's still around 50 quid normally if you buy it at a CEX, and people have 5 or 6 of them. I understand if you want to have 2 because if one breaks and you can't repair it, you've got another one. But to have 5 is no longer collecting, in my opinion. It's like taking the joy away from someone else.
Yeah, it's weird.
Let me just get some pillows.
Absolutely.
Because my arse is on fire. We'll
Leave that in
later. We'll see. I wanted to do that before we get started, but I forgot.
That's a classic. Don't worry. It's one of the things that you tend to forget.
But yeah, I mean, it's this is one of my favorite things to do. Or not favorite things to do, but this is something where my girlfriend was like recently. She's like, you've got this nice sideboard under your telly, and there's nothing really in there. Why don't you just put them all in there so you can just pull out the cables if you need them, and you just hook them up? And it's not nice. If I open it, I can decide, what, I'm going to play some GameCube tonight. I rarely do it, but sometimes you've got someone over who's like the same age as you, or who's got an interest. And then you get to play something like Mario Kart. Yeah. And that's fun.
Yeah.
And that's the thingy. I think with everything that you collect, what fascinates you about it, or as long as you've got fun with it, that I understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the whole thing, when people just collect for not even a completionist sake, but I feel like a lot of the market with very popular things is cornered by people who hope to make money off it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have 2, in quotation mark, collectible comic books. Old ones, sort of, not really. That were given to me by a friend of mine who I haven't spoken to in years, unfortunately. No real reasons, just a classic thing of, childhood friend, etc. But for my 18th birthday, she got me the edition of, what is it, X-Men?
Oh, wow.
and Avengers that were released in my birth year.
Oh, wow.
The month of my birth year. And I don't know how she got them. You can probably just buy them off some form of online forum, everything.
Yeah.
But they are the only thing that I own that are enclosed in just the original packaging and some sort of foil. I did take them out before, and I did read them, just because I feel like, why not?
It's a respectful thing to do also.
Exactly.
It's a nice gift.
But it's sort of like it's this see-through envelope type thing that, they're just enclosed in, and they are in there. And it's the only thing I own where I would be curious to see if that will ever be worth something. Not right now, because I mean, I'm turning 27 in a couple of weeks. It's not enough time yet to be worth something. But move on another 27 years, Let's see.
Because, I mean, that's the thing. Things, when they stop getting produced, of course, they will eventually, depending on what it is, appreciate in value or, depreciate.
Yeah.
It all depends on what it is. But, I mean, especially something, that if you're not taking good care of it, it has a shelf life. And if we're talking paper, like, for example, I think somebody found in their house a sort of insulation for their house, the Action comic that had the first appearance of Superman, and they rated it. And I think it only came out at around 1 out of 10, but he can still expect to make over $10,000 off it.
Insane.
It is. And there's, I don't know, if do you have anything that's valuable at this point? I don't really know. I mean, for example, I take good care of my consoles. I'm not running around cleaning them or anything, but I make sure, they're stored in a way that nothing can happen to them. And, over time, consoles break. They break down, parts just, dissolve, whatever.
They're being used, it happens.
Exactly. And for example, something I started collecting, and I don't know how that's, oh yes, I remember how it started. I got a PS2 at a CEX in London, and the first thing I bought with it was Final Fantasy X. Because, everybody was like, Final Fantasy, and I never played a Final Fantasy before. And I started playing it, and I got the appeal. I liked it very much. And I started collecting Final Fantasy games. And, if possible, for the original platform. So I have, for example, 7, 8, and 9, which is those nice, 4 CD PlayStation 1 cases. And I have those. I haven't finished them. I've tried all of them, and they're charming. They're charming as all hell. They really are. But they're long games.
Yeah.
And, if you haven't played them for a while, you don't know where you left off, and you have to start all over again. So I never really managed to finish them. The only Final Fantasy up to this point I finished is Final Fantasy 15. Great game. I loved it. So, but I have, and my mum, and I never understood this. I remember one day she came to me and it's like, oh yeah, I got you this. It's called, I think, Final Fantasy Anthology. It's like Final Fantasy 3 and 4, which originally came out for the Famicom in Japan. And then they later ported it to the original PlayStation with, CGI cutscenes. And she's like, I'm like, why did you buy me this? She's like, I know you like those Final Fantasy games, or at least you got them. I'm like, yeah, thank you. And I got, at a flea market for very cheap, the port of Final Fantasy VI, which was originally on the Super Nintendo and Super Famicom, as the PlayStation port as well. And, it was just in a box sitting there. And, it's always very exciting when you've got someone sitting there who doesn't know what they have. Don't get me wrong, it's not an overly expensive game, but instead of like 50 or 60 quid, I paid like 5 for it.
Yeah, there's a difference there. Absolutely.
Exactly, and it's not about, oh, this is worth so much more. But no, for me it's a bargain, because I don't intend to sell it.
Yeah.
But I have it, and I can try it, and I actually did, and it's a fantastic game. And but also, sometimes I think when I sit there, they're not overly valuable now, but eventually, I'm 35 now, let go by another 35 years, then, this game is, I don't know how old, probably over 50 years old at that point. I'm like, yeah, somebody might be interested in this, because,
Absolutely.
Things get lost over time.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that goes for basically everything. And I think that's That's really the appeal that I get most about collecting things. Is, I mean, a couple of friends of mine, for example, have a thing where when they buy something that they really enjoy, be it either video games or films or anything, if they buy the digital version or the stream license or whatever, if they buy something on Amazon Prime or, you know, any sort of on Steam, whatever, if they really like it, they will buy the physical version of it because they're like, this I own. And people can't take this away from me. I'm not dependent on a platform running.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not dependent on the license for the thing, for the film, for the show being renewed by the you know, because Amazon, you don't buy the thing. You buy basically a timed license, and if Amazon doesn't have the license anymore, you spend money on nothing.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter that you bought it before, they don't have it anymore. And if it comes back, you gotta buy it new. And it's the thing where, like, if you have something in physical form that you can touch, that you can hold, that you can put on your shelf, that anything, it's yours.
Exactly.
And it lasts.
And the nice thing is, let's not forget, there's a time when the internet breaks down. At least it happened to me more than once.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, like, I'm so fixated on the internet. When the internet doesn't work, my first my first idea was to, you know, like okay, let's Google what's going on. I mean, these days you have a phone, you know, with mobile data.
But even then, imagine, like, it's not your router. Imagine if it's, I don't know, the provider itself, and then you're sitting there, you're like, nothing works.
I remember not too long ago there was I don't know, some construction site dug into something they shouldn't have dug into, and they basically severed the whole internet connection to this area. And I called them, I called my internet provider after a day or two, and I'm like, guys, I have no internet and I don't like it because I need it for work too. And they're like, well, you know, this happened and sorry, we don't know how long it's going to be. I'm like, okay, I can go somewhere to work, don't get me wrong, I can go to a library and get Wi-Fi there, I bring my laptop, I bring something to drink and to eat, that's fine. I'm like, okay, these things happen, you know, like, no need to be angry about it. But by the end of the day, you know, like, when I get home, don't get me wrong, I like to read, but I also like to watch something.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, I have, like, for example, before the new season came out, I had the entirety of Futurama on DVD, which really helps in a situation like that if you don't want to watch a movie. I have shitloads of movies that I very much appreciate, or if it's just silly comedies, I buy those too.
Absolutely.
Because it's good to have silly comedies.
Agreed.
And, you know, I'm like, oh yeah, I can't watch that. Oh yeah, right, I have no internet at the moment, so I better break out a Blu-ray or a DVD or whatever. And I'm like, yeah. And you know what's so interesting? When you have all the access to streaming, you're like, I don't know what I want to watch.
Oh,
the moment that's all gone, you're like, oh, I've been meaning to watch, I don't know, Frost Nixon for a long time. It's like, there's nothing else you're going to do.
Yeah.
You know, like, you're most definitely not going to go on Netflix or Disney Plus. So there you go, put it in. It's like, and you sit there, it's like, bloody hell, that's a good movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if that paralysis of choice is taken away from you, suddenly you are very good at making choices. Like, I hate that, like, my current partner and me, he cannot sleep when it's not something playing. I've grown accustomed to that. I prefer silence, but it doesn't matter.
So do I.
But so whenever we sleep over at one of our places, he's like, okay, so what are we gonna put on to sleep later? And then
how about silence?
Yeah, well, I'm like, rain sounds later, please. But yeah, and then more often than not, he will drop that, then go do something else, and be like, you pick something. And then I'm sitting there with the just pure, the paralysis of choice, the amalgamation of streaming services that suddenly, because we have it all. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Together we have Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, and YouTube, obviously. And you're just sitting there and you're like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know where to start. But then I feel like it's even you in the back of your head, you know, like, I meant to watch that for so long. But because you have other choices, you're like, nah, not now. Nah, not in the mood.
Yeah, exactly.
Nah,
yeah, exactly.
I don't feel
This might be a worthwhile watch, but also a difficult one. You know
Yeah.
what? I'm going to watch White Chicks again.
Exactly.
Because White Chicks.
We did that yesterday. I wanted to watch Poor Things.
Okay.
Because I haven't seen that yet, and I wanted to watch it before the Oscars, but it wasn't available on any streaming services. Now it is for 12 quid, but still. So I wanted to watch that, but he wasn't really in the mood for anything he had to pay attention to or serious. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And then we were like thinking about what we were watching. We ended up renting the new Five Nights at Freddy's movie.
Oh, fuck that! I watched the Cinema Sins. A video of that. How? First of all,
fell asleep within the first 5 minutes. Don't ask me anything about this film.
You missed out. Watch this Cinema Sins.
Josh Hutchinson's in that. What the hell?
Watch this Cinema Sins video on that, because I never played Five Nights at Freddy's. It's one of those indie horror games that's much deeper than it appears to be.
Yeah, the lore is actually insane. I have a fan song saved on my Spotify.
I mean,
it's called Survive the Night, and it's actually a banger.
And that's the thing, all those indie horror games that have very deep lore. That's the thing for a few years now. And Five Nights at Freddy's started that. But if you watch the movie, it tries to have so many layers, which none of them they're done well. But just as a side note, but that's the thing. I recently, while I was playing theatre in another town, it was incredible. Our car was broken into. Mm-hmm. Everything was gone, including my flat key. So I had to sleep, at my friend's house, the person I'm playing with.
A nightmare.
And so I didn't realise. First of all, it was very nice of them to allow me to stay. It was like, don't worry. In the morning, we get you another key. You sleep here. Don't even think about it. It's all fine. So we're going to sleep. He's like, yeah, I'm ready to go to sleep. I say, that's fine. And he turns on the laptop and turns on Sabrina the Teenage Witch with Melissa Joan Hart. And I remember loving that show when I grew up. And the thing is, I also sleep in utter silence. I like to listen to a podcast before I turn it off and go to sleep.
Exactly.
I like to do that, or like an audiobook or whatever. And I'm lying there and I'm not watching the episode, I'm just listening to it. Because, I haven't watched it in years and it's entertaining as fuck. Yeah. And, I'm lying there, I'm like, the other person's falling asleep and they start snoring. And, guess where my fucking earplugs are? Because I never travel without them. They're upstairs in my apartment. Smart. Right. So, I'm like, okay. But, just, I'm getting sidetracked. But I just...
No, I get it.
So vividly.
It's, yeah.
But, for example, one thing that I collect consciously that nobody else seemed to get, least of all my girlfriend, is I have let's say the original Star Wars trilogy and the prequel trilogy at least 3 times each movie on DVD or Blu-ray respectively. Why? Simple. Because first of all, there was the silver box of the original trilogy that was released. Mm-hmm. That was the first version that contained, at the end of Return of the Jedi, when you see the Force ghosts of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda and Anakin. That was the first time it wasn't the actor who originally portrayed Darth Vader, mm-hmm. but it was Hayden Christensen they put in there. Which is very unfair because Ben Kenobi's still old, Yoda's still old, but Anakin's like, fuck that, I look great again. And this makes no sense because Luke can only assume this is his father, otherwise who the fuck is that arsehole? Hey Yoda, hey Ben, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
And the thing is, I bought that because that was the very first time Star Wars, the original trilogy, was released on DVD. Loved it. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. There are some changes because every time another version comes out, changes are made. So then I bought the original trilogy again on DVD because they made a special edition where you had 2 films with every DVD you bought. First of all, the special edition they did of 4, 5 and 6, and for the only time on DVD you got the original theatrical release, which was then only available if you got the original VHS tapes years and years ago.
I see.
So I got that. And I obviously got episode 1, 2, and 3 on DVD, of course, 2-disc set. And then I got the, I think it was then, I've got them here, Star Wars, The Complete Saga, episode 1 through 6 on Blu-ray. And my then girlfriend, she was like, okay, then why don't you throw the old ones away? I said, are you serious? Because there's differences in the movies. That doesn't mean that I say, okay, it's time to rewatch Star Wars today, we're going to watch that episode. I'm normally just watching the latest one. At this point, I'm watching them all on Disney Plus because 4K.
Yeah, of course.
But
I understand, when you have it already, you don't toss it. I get that.
No, it's not that. But the special features normally are different. Because, just because the special feature is on the last edition, that doesn't mean it carries over to the new one. And sometimes I really like to watch those. And now I also have Star Wars, The Skywalker Saga, which has, like all 9 movies. And, okay, maybe I don't have every movie of the original and the prequel trilogy like 3 times, but I have them
often enough.
More than once.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And, I'm thinking, why not? Because normally I don't buy them at full price, like I wait for the price to go down or whatever. And it's the only thing I buy in my life, I feel, where it's like, this is definitely superfluous. There's no need for it, but I do it because it makes me happy. And it's not something that happens every fucking week.
Yeah, I think I understand. I'm trying to think right now if I have something that is similar.
I'd be very much surprised if you did, because this is rather particular.
It is, but I mean, okay, in 2 ways. The Harry Potter books, I own them in German and English. I read them originally in German, read the first one when I was like 7, I think. Then read them all through until the last one came out, whenever that was, when I was 10, I believe, or 11, at least in Germany. And at that point, I had started learning English in school. So it kind of corresponded to when our English classes really picked up, becoming intense and like really teaching us English seriously, because in primary school we wouldn't really, but then like afterwards. And then I had just finished the last Harry Potter book, and I was so not ready to say goodbye to the series that I then immediately reread the Philosopher's Stone in German. And then the second I finished it, read it in English. Even though I didn't really speak English yet that much. But whenever, first of all, I had just reread it for the, I don't know how many, the oomph time. And I knew it by heart low-key. And whenever I didn't know anything, I would just get the original book and would look it up. But that means that I own the entirety of all the Harry Potter books twice, at least. I also got my dad liked 2 versions of it in Latin, because he's a Latin teacher. They do exist in not all of them, but the first 2 or 3 exist in Latin.
Up to this point, I liked your father. And I don't even think that's his fault. But some arsehole was sitting there, you know what we should do? Translate this into Latin. And somebody was like, oh, that's a good idea. And you know what's the worst part of it? None of those people were drunk. They were completely sober deciding that.
Probably, yeah. The other thing that is, I guess, in a way superfluous is to come back to One Piece. Some of the mangas I've read so many times that they're falling apart. And those that have been low-key falling apart and where the glue came undone on like the back of the book in quotation marks, of the comic, I would get a new one.
But I mean, I understand. For example, I started, I think in my 20s, reading the Discworld novels by Terry Pratchett. And first I, bought the paperbacks, because they've got this nice, very classic Discworld artwork on there. And then I realised they've done the whole collection in hardcover, and I really liked it. So the book I was reading at the time, the Terry Pratchett book, I immediately bought again as a hardcover, and from there on out, I keep buying those books, hardcover version. Yeah. So far, I haven't bought the books I've already read again as a hardcover, but I'm going to at some point because they look amazing. And don't get me wrong, the paperbacks are also beautiful because it's classic. I think his name's Paul Kirby or Paul Kirby. I never can remember. I do apologise, but it's very imaginative. But something I have to say for Harry Potter, something that really shocked me. I don't know if it's still the artwork for it, but like I grew up with the classic Harry Potter English books, like with the very nice artworks. I mean, if you start with the Philosopher's Stone and then like Chamber of Secrets, it's still a bit like like a children's book cover.
Absolutely.
And everything. But later on, they become more lavish.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the hardcover of the Deathly Hallows, it's beautiful with the gold and everything, and it's very well done. And then you see the original German versions.
Nightmare material.
They're not necessarily nightmare material, but so incredibly German. Not to dish out too much against the Germans, because I know the English like everything to be, I don't know, everything has to be beautiful and a bit dreamy and a bit luxurious. But the Germans is just like, it's very sobering. This is about a wizarding world, and you've got Harry Potter. This little cape he's got there.
Sort of triangular as well. Everything in it is very shape heavy.
Yeah, exactly.
Harsh lines.
Some of the colours are nice, but like
very dark.
When I saw like I think
very muddy colours.
Exactly, the German earthy colours. Exactly.
Yeah.
The German version of like the Deathly Hallows. I was like, really? Oh wow. Okay, yeah. I guess there's Voldemort. I guess there's Nagini. I guess there's Harry, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And it's incredible that Harry Potter actually became so popular in Germany, despite the bloody artwork. I'm not knocking the artist here, but I don't know. This is something because I speak German, and I read German books and I read German books and all that. But you go in Germany, you go to a bookstore, you immediately know when you're in the English section.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like, for as much as you can criticize about like English culture and everything, rightfully so, I feel like, well, at least the books are bloody colourful for the most part.
True.
Because I like having a bookshelf full of nice colourful books that sort of, I don't know, it's
vibrant. That sort of breathes some life into it.
I feel like a bookshelf or a shelf of any sort where you put on movies, books, whatever, it's a bit of a statement, of things you like. And the most interesting thing that I've ever seen was we stayed at an Airbnb, me and my then girlfriend. And I keep using the term then girlfriend. I'm not good at keeping them. I'm a horrible partner. I think you all should know that.
Different episode on that one.
And we stayed at the place, and they had this thing where everything was colourless. So everything was white, or like very light wood. And then I got to their bookshelf, and they had all the books turned around so that the spine was facing the inside of the shelf.
Psychopaths.
So you could only see the white or beige at this point pages. And I'm like, fuck you.
Psychopaths.
Because I've heard from
friends... Get out of there, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna get murdered.
I've heard from friends of mine was like, I feel sometimes some of your stuff is too eclectic. It's too much in terms of colours. I'm like, okay, fair enough. If you like it simple, that's fine. But I'm like, have some fucking colour in your life. I know for some people it's too much to take in, and I respect that. But when you get to the point where you turn your fucking books around, and
that's crazy.
I checked those books, and those books had mostly white backs, like with some black writing on there. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, it's a good thing I have a dog with me, because exactly, if those fuckers come home at night, I don't trust them.
I was gonna say, I don't trust that. I'm sorry. I did that. That's not normal people behavior. That's not.
This is committing.
What aliens live there.
This is committing to a colourless lifestyle at a level I can't understand.
That's no. That's
Yeah.
Hannibal Lecter's flat. I don't know.
Like seriously, but
No.
I feel, in terms of collecting and everything, I was fortunate, let's call it that, fortunate enough to work out of Knightsbridge for a while, and I rubbed shoulders with some very, very rich people. Just, I wasn't in any position where I was considered their equal. I worked for them.
Yeah.
And, the collections of cars, for example, they'd have, because they buy those things, because let's say even if a car is incredibly overpriced at £1 million, they were so wealthy they wouldn't notice £1,000,000 missing. And I was privy to conversations where like they just arrived in London and the driver came to them. It's like, which car would you like me to bring around? It's like, I don't know. What do you suggest? How about the Maserati? Which Maserati? The maroon one. I have a maroon Maserati. And like, not only did he not know he had a maroon Maserati, the thing is, the driver later told me that thing was bloody limited to 12 pieces in the world. And I'm just like, yeah, there's a point, like where you're so wealthy, where things, what basically you
nothing matters anymore.
Exactly. Earthly things no longer matter to you.
Honestly,
not in a good way, because you think like, it's just.
I don't know. I would aspire to that. Sounds.
Exactly, because it's not like you say like, okay, material things don't matter because like they can't last, but it's simply because like you've got enough to always get more.
You have no perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't want that. Not that I would mind having a little bit more money. Not that I would mind having enough money to have like 2 cars or something. I mean, not necessarily cars, but like just have the finances where that would matter. But taking it that far, screams existential crisis to me.
Yeah, and I mean, it's always very interesting the moment you get your hands on a bit more money. Normally, like what would you call it? The things basically you have an affection for in life. Like they become bigger because all of a sudden you've got the money and to sort of fund them. And I was very, because of my sort of sometimes compulsive nature, I was very lucky that I had the right kind of partner at the time when I got a bit of an inheritance. It wasn't major. But instead of, luckily I was already past that point in my life where I was like, oh, now I can afford, I don't know, buying an arcade machine or something like that, because those things are fucking expensive. They look cool, but they're fucking expensive. And so I said, or we said, what we're going to do, this is not going to be our last flat, that's for sure, because we used to live in a shitty area. But we said, you know what, because right now we don't have to be overly careful with money. We're going to buy the things we really want in a nice flat. Like a nice couch, a nice bed, not the thing like, okay, we're not going to live here forever, it's not good to have solid wood things or stuff like that. We're going to have this compromised living situation. We didn't do that, and I still have those things, and I'm like, they're quality things, and I know they're going to last for a very long time because I like to take care of those things. And I'm very glad with how fun collecting can be, but I know that I have a nature that, like when not kept in check, that I would probably go berserk and say like, wow, this is I don't know, the boots worn by Harrison Ford in episode 5 for one scene, and they're only 120,000 euros.
Oh, what a steal.
Yeah, I'm going to buy them. It's like, wow, I have the boots now. It's like, I might have done that, let's say 15 years ago. And now I'm just like, well, I don't see the point. Don't get me wrong, I like to go to an exhibition where you can see proper props, the original props. I'm like,
absolutely,
wow,
very interesting.
He carried that in
backstage
that scene.
stuff, so cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not at a level where I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy this now, or like, I didn't even go around and say like, I think I should buy a relatively cheap Picasso. Don't get me wrong, I like art fairly well, and I like to have good quality prints.
Yeah.
But like, there's a sensible thing to do, and I think there's time and place, and it's the same what they say with gambling. When the fun stops, stop. And that's the thing with collecting, like as long as it's fun, as long as you can enjoy the thing and you don't feel the compulsive need to buy it because, like, otherwise you might not get it.
Yeah.
Or it's not part of your collection, or you don't know what it's going to be worth in a couple of years. And just, like to just go into a shop and like, oh fuck, oh my god, I don't have that. Oh my god, it's only £5.
Yeah,
yes, I'm taking that.
Best thing ever.
Beautiful.
Best feeling ever. That's what it should be.
This is why I love going to flea markets. I might not find anything. I might find something. And even if I say like, wow, I don't know, I bought The Secret of Mana. It's a classic game for the Super Nintendo. And I got it for £20. And I'm like, yeah, £20, that's worth it. And normally in a shop you'd buy it around 40, 50.
Yeah.
And at a flea market where I'm thinking like, it's still a flea market. I don't want to rip anyone off who knows the value, but I'm not going to pay like 70 quid for it. But I say like,
valid.
It's like treasure hunting.
Yeah.
You might find something, you don't have to, but I still immensely enjoy a flea market because you don't know what you might find.
Which brings me back to my point about all of us being magpies from the beginning of the episode. It's shiny, I want it. And shiny means vastly different things. But I feel like in the end, that's all. We collect our little tokens because we like them. Because they make our house nice.
They bring us closer to something.
They allow us to express something and our fondness of something that someone else created and we heavily relate to, we enjoy. And I think that is something quite unique in a way to nerd culture as it was. Because I'm sure the same thing applies to if you're collecting stamps or coins. But what I feel adds a different layer for us is that we're trying to enter different worlds with it. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to, like I said earlier, bridge the gap.
I think
I find that quite beautiful.
I agree, because, exactly that. Most likely you won't always be able to do in your life exactly what you want all the time.
Yeah.
Hopefully a lot of the time. Hopefully you're very happy with the situation you're in, or you're moving to that place.
Yes.
But it's nice, let's say, for example, at the moment I'm still working a restaurant job I'm no longer too fond of, but the situation's changing. And after a long day, sometimes it's nice to come home and see something that you really appreciate. For example, I finished a video game from my childhood a few years ago, Grim Fandango, which has a beautiful film noir, Dia de los Muertos sort of setting. It's amazing. And I got posters of the locations, basically presented in a way like it's from a travel agency. And I'm about to buy the frames and put them up.
Nice.
And I get home after a long day, and it takes you out of your routine just a little bit.
It does.
No longer as much in my case that I say like, oh yeah, if I could live there, nothing like that. But I'm like, oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
And exactly, it brings us a bit closer. It eases the day a bit, like of what, because especially if you do things for a prolonged time that you're not too fond of, you might consider this as an ironclad reality, and it might seem, inescapable.
But sometimes you need a little pick-me-up.
Exactly, and you realise there's a little bit more, and there's things you enjoy. Agreed. And that's good. And I feel like, okay, yeah, I can get through another day, and I feel motivated enough to find something better, because I know there are things that make me happy, and I know I can be happy, so I can get to a better place than I might be right now.
Yeah.
And again, when the fun stops, stop. But as long as you're having fun.
That goes for anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree.
Lovely. I think that brings us round to a very nice ending.
Agreed. Let us know in the comments if you're collecting something, your thoughts about collecting in and of itself, what you think we might have gotten wrong. But other than that, thank you so much for listening.
And we hear you next time, guys. Thanks.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.